Bunch of polls coming out yesterday, and none of them are really good for Joe Biden. For more on this, let's welcome in former Deputy Press Secretary at the White House, Hogan Gidley, and Project 21 National Advisory Board member, radio host Christopher Arps. Great to have you back. Hogan, we'll start with you. First up, this Reuters poll that came out yesterday. Joe Biden's approval rating. This is unbelievable. And this guy's trying to announce that he's running for president again. Reuters has got it at 39%. If you were in the White House and you had a number that bad, would you push off announcing that you're running again?
Well, first of all, I don't know how it's that high, considering all the failures domestically and internationally. But there are some diehard Democrats who refuse to recognize the obvious, that Joe Biden clearly has lost not only his fastball, but his curve and his knuckleball and his sinker and his slider and everything else. He's way past, any prime if he ever had one in the first place. But also the field is lackluster as well, even though we have a Kennedy in the race. I'm not sure how much damage he can do, although at 14%. But if you're trying to message this, it's tough to do so because there's not much going on in the Biden administration that has benefited the American people. That's in large measure why they're pointing to issues like abortion and trying to drill down on that, because they have nothing else in terms of successes to tout. And so Joe Biden's got some political problems here, no question about it. But these things will obviously flatten out as you begin to see a two-person race, because elections are binary choices. You may not like the choices, but it's one or the other. And Joe Biden obviously is at the top of the ticket right now until someone knocks him off. And it looks like we could be set for a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Yeah, Chris Hogan mentions there's somebody who's going to go potentially up against Joe Biden. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced. Take a listen.
I've come here today to announce my candidacy for the Democratic nomination for President of the United States. My mission over the next 18 months of this campaign and throughout my presidency will be to end the corrupt merger of state and corporate power.
All right, Chris, just, he's been on Newsmax. Just if people don't know, he has a throat condition, so sometimes it is hard to understand him. But we talked about Biden's approval rating. We now have Kennedy, who's announced he's running. USA Today says he's got 14%. So does this surprise you?
Surprises me a lot. As we've talked earlier, the Kennedy name doesn't have quite the mystique that it used to have at one time. They haven't had anyone in power for a long time. Of course, name ID, Robert F. Kennedy helps, but 14% is amazing to me. And then let's not forget that Marianne Williamson is in the race as well, and she may take a few points away from him. So very, very surprising. He's got his work cut out for him, though.
That's a great point, Chris. I hadn't thought about it like that. So if this were reversed, and say Mike Pence or Nikki Haley or Vivek Ramaswamy, who's going to be with us tomorrow on Wake Up America, if they were at 14%, everyone would say, wait a second, this is a three-man race right now. Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, and whoever's at 14%. Don't forget, Joe Biden is a sitting Democratic president, and he is being primaried right now by another Kennedy. His uncle, by the way, Ted Kennedy, did this to Jimmy Carter in 1980. Didn't work out well for Ted Kennedy, didn't work out well for Jimmy Carter, didn't work out well for the Democrats that gave us 8 years of Ronald Reagan and then 4 more years of George H.W. Bush. I want to move on to some of the Ron DeSantis gossip from yesterday, Hogan. DeSantis, we know, was in South Carolina yesterday. Before that, he was on Capitol Hill at a meet and greet with, and he was in Congress for 6 years himself, so he was meeting with some former colleagues. Politico saying DeSantis gets warm words at GOP Hill event, but few endorsements. And he wanted to walk out of there with endorsements. That was what he was going for there. My question to you, if there's a desire out there somewhere in the Republican ether for a non-Trump nominee, why don't we see more immediate congressional support, and I mean endorsements, and members of Congress coming out saying, yes, they're going to back Ron DeSantis?
Well, endorsements for what? Ron DeSantis is not a declared candidate, so I'm a little bit confused as to what he was looking for. Should Ron DeSantis run, I'm going to endorse the man? That doesn't make any real sense if you ask me, although he has had a few endorsements out there. Look, the coalescing behind a Trump alternative is really pie in the sky, ridiculous thought. That's not how these things work. People fight and scratch and claw, draw blood at times to get to be the nominee of the Republican Party. That's how it works, because then you're ready for the fights the Democrats are going to throw at you. Right now, obviously, Donald Trump is atop that heap. He's going to stay atop that heap, and he's picking up more steam and more endorsements as the race moves along.
Yeah.
Someone like DeSantis, someone like Nikki, someone like Tim, they're all trying to say, I'm Donald Trump, I'm his policies without his personality. So they're all going down a crowded lane right now. But why would you pick someone who is Donald Trump light when you have Donald Trump sitting out there ready to do this all over again? It's a weird dynamic for this race, and I think we're going to see a lot more play out in the next 2 years or 18 months.
I'll just say, all these candidates, and Nikki Haley included, they all love Trump policies, but they say it's time to move on from Donald Trump, which I think Ron DeSantis is going to have a tough time with this. You know, you can't have the same policies and say you want to move on from the guy who's actually running for president.
Yeah, they all are.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, does DeSantis, have his own lane? If he does decide to run, is he able to separate himself?
That's a good question. I mean, a lot of people say being Trump light is not going to help him. Why, have Trump light when you can have the real thing? One of the knocks on DeSantis when he was in Congress and his first term as governor, that he doesn't do well with the retail politics, that he's kind of aloof. And I think, honestly, that's a reason. I think some of these Florida delegation, they do support Donald Trump, but I think a big part of the reason why they're not supporting DeSantis is he is aloof and maybe didn't pat their backs and rub their shoulders like he should have. An example, Congressman Stubbe, who fell off the ladder back in December, he is endorsed Donald Trump, and he said the main reason that he's doing that is because Ron DeSantis never called him while he was in the hospital, and Donald Trump was one of the first people to call him. So as Hogan knows, people in politics have long memories, and they don't forget.
Hogan, 5 seconds,
especially
final thought.
In these small states like South Carolina, Iowa, New Hampshire, the reputation of not being someone who can retail politics is a problem, and it spreads like wildfire in those small states.
Yeah.
And so once that narrative's set, it's tough to push back against it.
Hogan, Chris, we'll do it again soon. Great stuff this morning. Thank you.
Thanks.